Good morning. This is White Raptor News Ministries. All praise and glory to the Supreme Spirit of Truth, the Living One. There is nothing like the point of singularity, the all-knowing, omnipotent force that moves all things in place. Blessings be to the children that serve one God, the Supreme. We're going to close out 2 Samuel chapter 24, and I've officially made it to 25% of the Bible. I've got probably about another 3 or 4 years of reading this thing all the way through. It's larger tasks than most think, but blessings be to those that really are seeking salvation and would like to know their Creator. Blessings to you. So again, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, "Go and take a census of Israel and Judah." Now this is a big question to ask yourself. At this point in time, this is a giveaway, and we know that this couldn't possibly be the Supreme Creator, because if it's a Supreme Creator, then why does there need to be a census taken? If you're an almighty, omnipotent, all-power, all-knowing Creator, then you shouldn't need anybody to take a census for you. You should know the numbers. Just throwing that out there. Go take a census of Israel and Judah. So the king said to Joab and the army's commanders with him, "Go throughout the tribes of Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, and enroll the fighting men, so that I may know how many there are." Oh, God doesn't know how many fighting men there are? That makes perfect sense. But Joab replied to the king, "May the Lord your God multiply the troops 100 times over, and may the eyes of the Lord the king see it. But why does my Lord the king want to do such a thing?" Yes, why? And you got a man or a lord that's being called a king. King just being another word, as queen is another word. The omnipotent Creator, the all-knowing, masterful, the all you can see and all you cannot see, the invisible and visible, the one without beginning or end. These are key things to understand, is that the Supreme Spirit has always been. Always. And that's just an amazing thing when you start thinking of something that's always been. Not just came into existence, not just became aware, but something that has always been aware. Such a mind-blowing concept. The king's word, however, overruled Joab and the army's commanders, so they left the presence of the king to enroll the fighting men of Israel. After crossing the Jordan, they camped near Aroer, south of the town in the gorge, and then went through Gad and on to Jazer. They went to Gilead, and the region of Tatim Hashai, and on to Dan Jan, and around towards Sidon. Then they went towards the fortress of Tyre, and all the towns of the Hivites and the Canaanites. Finally, they went on to Beersheba in the Negev of Judah. After they had gone through the entire land, they came back to Jerusalem at the end of 9 months and 20 days. Joab reported the number of fighting men to the king. In Israel, there were 800,000 able-bodied men who could handle a sword, and in Judah, 500,000. And the Ask yourselves a question here as well, is who trained all these men to fight? Angels? Demons? Just a question. Ask it yourself. Who trained all of Israel to fight with the sword? Something that loves blood, huh? That'd be my guess. Handle the sword, and Judah 500,000. So we're looking at about 1,400,000 troops. David was conscience stricken after he had counted the fighting men, and he said to the Lord, I have sinned greatly in what I have done. Now, Lord, I beg you, take away the guilt of your servant. I have done a very foolish thing. Before David got up the next morning, the word of the Lord had come to Gad, the prophet, David's seer. Go and tell David, a seer. David's got a seer, by the way, a seer, a watcher, someone who sees the future, predicts future, divineer, a seer. Go and tell David, this is what the Lord says. I am giving you 3 options. Choose one of them for me to carry out against you. So Gad went to David and said to him, shall there come on you 3 years of famine in your land, or 3 months of fleeing from your enemies while they pursue you, or 3 days of plague in your land? Now then, take it, think it over, and decide how I should answer the one who sent me. David said to Gad, I am in deep distress. Let us fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is great, but do not let me fall into human hands. Well, isn't David a human? We got to understand that this is kind of a trick, all right? Don't fall into human hands. Human and Gentile are not the same. Shouldn't David be worried about falling into the Gentile hands? And if it is truly human hands that he's worried about falling into, then that would be a brother Israelite. Israelites are human. Gentile are something other than human. They're souls without a spirit. Okay? Everything has to have a soul according to the Bible in order for that soul to be judged. So we know that even the Gentile have souls, but they are not aligned with the Supreme Spirit. So the Lord sent a plague on Israel from the morning until the end of the time designated, and 70,000 of his people from Dan to Beersheba died. When the angel stretched out his hand to destroy Jerusalem, the Lord relented concerning the disaster and said to the angel who was afflicting the people, enough, withdraw your hand. The angel of the Lord was then at the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. When David saw the angel who was striking down the people, he said to the Lord, I have sinned. I, the shepherd, have done wrong. These are but sheep. What have they done? Let your hand fall on me and my family. David builds an altar. On that day, Gad went to David and said to him, go up and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So that David went up, as the Lord had commanded through Gad. When Araunah looked and saw the king and his officials coming towards him, he went out and bowed down before the king with his face to the ground. Araunah said, why has my lord the king come to his servant? To buy your threshing floor? David answered, so I can build an altar to the Lord, that the plague on the people may be stopped. Araunah said to David, let my lord the king take whatever he wishes and offer it up. Here are oxen for the burnt offering, and here are threshing sledges and ox yokes for the wood. Your majesty, Araunah, gives all this to the king. Araunah Araunah also said to him, "May the Lord your God accept you." But the king replied to Araunah, "No, I insist on paying you for it. I will not sacrifice to the Lord my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing." So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen and paid 50 shekels of silver for them. David built an altar to the Lord there and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then the Lord answered his prayers in behalf of the land, and the plague on Israel was stopped. I'm going to leave that as a reading. All praise and glory to the Supreme Spirit of Truth, the Living One. Have a pleasant day. All those who got to get up and go to work, be safe, and always recognize that we are in a land of death, perpetual war, hate, and you must see this. All praise and glory to you, the Spirit of Truth. This is White Raptor News Ministries.